Hello, everybody. I hope you had an interesting day so far. Thanks a lot for being here and showing your interest for this topic and reuse and collaboration for better eGov services. It's a bit less technical topic. It's more about culture and a mindset. But I'll tell you all about it. And yes, how can you participate to the initiative? That is a question that hopefully you will find an answer in what I will be presenting. Perhaps first of all about Smals, the company for which I work. It is also known, our slogan is ICT for society. So we deliver ICT services for the public sector in the social security sector, in the eHealth. So maybe you have heard about it. We are an association of government institutions in Belgium. So we have more than 2,000 people in our company at the moment, and we do activities like research activities, software development, also infrastructure and staffing. That's mostly staffing of IT people at different public institutions. And we are an association, so who are our members? You see some of the members here presented on this slide. They are active social security, eHealth at the federal level, at the regional level, so all kinds of public institutions that we do build services for. Today I will be talking about the Reuse initiative, so I will explain a bit what it is, so it will become very clear, I think, in a few minutes. Why is it important? And it's important at the public institution level, even it's a strategic topic for Smals and all of our members. I will explain why it is so. I will also show some examples and some results of reuse in software and show how you can participate to the initiative. So you might be active as a freelancer in a consultancy company, or maybe you're interested in working at Smals. I will show you what it is all about. And maybe let's start with a little movie. So you have maybe seen this already on YouTube. Software reuse is, or reuse, this is maybe not software reuse when we speak in 1940, but reuse is not a new concept. You see, Walt Disney used it and had many benefits of it, but it creates value. And so that's what it's all about. When we build IT services for the government, we try to put reuse forward to create value and to be an enabler to build or to realize new projects. So what are we trying to achieve with this initiative? And well, the goal of what we are doing at Smals is to provide better digital services to the public. So digitalization is more and more common. So the processes are not paper processes anymore. We try to be as digital as possible. And when you look at the government, the Belgian government, you can see it like a big ecosystem. It's not one institution that is isolated and working in its own way. No, it is connected with other governments. When you look at the social security, there are 12 institutions of social security. All the processes that we build for citizens or enterprises, they start with one institution and they end at another institution. But not only that, we have several partners, private partners that are active in that ecosystem, or also abroad, Europe or other countries. In Europe, they have legislation that we have to follow, so they are also stakeholder in that important ecosystem. And how can we provide better digital services? We are sure that it should be done, convinced that it can only be done by working together with all these stakeholders in this ecosystem, and by sharing and reusing what already has been proving successful. That is a real enabler to achieve this goal. Now, there are some challenges in the government, and I'm sure that you all here already have been faced with these challenges. So the government, when you see it from a citizen perspective, it can be sometimes a bit chaotic or unclear. It's not so easy to find information at all the government websites, or to know what you have to do to be able to benefit from something that the government offers. So we see today that the experience with the government is not always optimal, I can say, and I'm already also part of it, of course, as a citizen. But there are more challenges. So the world is changing very fast. When we look, for example, the societal changes, when, for example, things that are work related. The family concept isn't what it was before. We have different definitions of income. We have the platform economy. All these changes need new digital services to be able to provide value for the citizens and enterprises or other stakeholders. There are many technology changes also, so we have to adapt and adopt these technology changes, or we have also ecological changes. So everything is changing, and we have to be flexible in the government to be able to cope with that. Another big challenge is, of course, the budget, and so the budgets are decreasing in the government. So there's a budget restriction. It's normal. It's necessary, of course. So we have to take care of the budgets that are provided by the tax and the public. And not only that, but also the skilled people in IT are very hard to find. So rebuild each time something that has been done for another institution, it's not a good idea. It can be maybe nice to try some things out, but some concepts have proven their value in the past, and should be able to be reused to build on and to create better services. So that is what we are trying to do. And the expectations of the citizens and the enterprises, they demand it. So what are citizens and enterprises asking at the government? They want effective services, so services that provide real value for them. But they also want integrated services. And integrated services means that in applications or new projects that we build, that we connect different functionalities or sources to provide a better value for the end users. Of course, we don't like administrative formalities, and if the government would be able to automate more, it would, of course, be better for the citizens. And services nowadays, there's a big attention at reliable and safety and availability of services. So that's also something that is very important. In the past, maybe the governments were thinking in a way from insights of the institution to provide the services. In the future or nowadays, we have more and more user participation. So when we build digital services, it has to support also the customer journeys of the citizens. And services has to be provided in a friendly way, and we also see that the media, of course, the smartphones or other sources of being in connection with the government are in constant evolution. They want things that are connected to their own processes or their own way of working in their daily life. And of course, when we exchange information, we should respect at all time the privacy matters. So these are challenges and expectations that are complex. It's a complex ecosystem, and when we see reuse in this challenge, we see it as an enabler to provide better digital services. And what does it mean? I think that the movie showed it. Let's not reinvent the wheel. So that is the thing that we want to put forward, and it can be very broad. So share and reuse existing assets. That's the thing that we want to put forward. You can see it at different levels. So the hardest level is to provide common business processes. So you could say when governments, for example, pay some benefits to the citizens, have invoice systems, have things for the HR departments. When they are able to use the same business processes, of course, that gives a big benefit to in case of cost effectiveness, for example. But that's the highest layer, and it's not so easy to achieve. But when we say software components, and certainly the software components that can be exposed by APIs, then we see a lot of possibilities. So nowadays APIs are very common. They are able to expose data or functionality to other computer systems. And when we see an evolution of these APIs and we provide them to the ecosystem, we see new possibilities, and we see that we can create better value and go faster with the realization of projects. In the government, we also try to buy sometimes software. Of course, there's a lot of expertise at the market, and there we try to have a common procurement, common licenses, also to reduce costs. Of course, we can share infrastructure, and so in the federal government we have different data centers, but also all kind of other building blocks can be put forward. So building blocks is one important thing, and the other thing, like I mentioned at the beginning, is the alignment and collaboration. And so also that can be done at different levels. So for example, if we have good business concepts, to identify people, to treat a case or different things, then it's a good thing to promote them and to rely on these mature concepts that have put in place. Another thing, for example, is on standards. When we talk about API, nowadays at the federal government, we have technical but also functional standards. For example, on the vocabulary, what is for example, an address, or what is a citizen? There are standards that are put forward, and they enhance interoperability between institutions. Sharing knowledge and techniques is something that we do, and also exchange good practices, and I will show some examples in the rest of the slides. And when we say it must be customer-centric, also the co-creation with different actors to provide digital services in the future will become more and more important. So when we do projects, we gather the different stakeholders around the table, and we discuss the requirements and try to provide the different services. And in this initiative, reuse, collaboration, already the different at different levels institutions are involved at the moment. And then when we dive a bit deeper in the reuse aspects, I will give some of the show some of the initiatives and some examples. So as I said, it can be done at different levels. And in the government, we started in 2015 by sharing infrastructure. And it is called the GCloud Initiative. We have some data centers here in Brussels at different places. And that was the most easy way to share assets. Let's say we share hardware and infrastructure platforms. So that is quite common and quite commonly used at the moment. In 2019, we saw that in the different teams from Smals that we began to have software components that were quite generic and that could be used in another context. So maybe in the companies that you work for, when you have large teams of a lot of teams, you also have these components that are put forward and that can be used in different projects. We have seen this also, and we have put it in a strategic objective to put forward these components, the authentic sources, the APIs, and these things. In 2021, we had an initiative, and that is recent, that is more a holistic approach of enterprise architecture, where we try to put forward architectural principles, processes and building blocks. And also in the government in the future, we are looking also for the usage of public clouds, of course, with the sufficient security behind it. And also in the government, we would like to avoid vendor lock-in, what is also important to not to be too reliable on external partners. So the GCloud Initiative, as I said, it is strong participation of different suppliers, mainly federal. It's for now it's a hybrid community cloud model. And how are these services offered? We have different GCloud services that are put forward in a sort of coalition. So it's not a central organization. Each of these services have service owners and service providers, and we have a strong governance to provide quality. So all these services are nowadays used by the different public institutions on several level. And this we have an organization structure, and it is the federal public services, the social security, and also the institutions of public benefits that are gathered around it and form a large community. And each month, for example, there are 60 IT managers of all these institutions that are put together to share knowledge and information in a community model. And so they search for ways to have a better collaboration. So that is the infrastructure part, the GCloud part. And we see here some examples of the different services that we offer. They are also consultable at the GCloud Belgium website. But as you see in the lower layers, we have some hard infrastructure components, and then when we move up, we have some other soft infrastructure and platforms. But we see that there is an evolution to more horizontal software solutions that come up, and that for which we can also provide services. And as I told in the beginning, the ideal would be, of course, that we could share business components or also core business components for the public services, like declarations, administrative processes, and so on. And when we shift up to the business layer, that is where software reuse and business components come up. And so it is an initiative that started in the social security area in Belgium, also in collaboration with Smals. And the idea is that we could save costs and avoid multiple development by using the existing components. And that is regardless of whether the development takes place at Smals itself, at an institution, or even with subcontractors. So everybody that participates in the ecosystem can share these components with each other. And for that we have a catalog, and it is also freely consultable at the internet, this ICT reuse.be. And at Smals we are working on that and using it as a tool to share existing components. And so when we have projects that are started, the catalog is consulted to see if there are some communication tools, authentic sources, or other kinds of components that are available. If it is not, we stimulate the development teams to provide, if it's a generic functionality, to provide new reusable components and offer them to the reuse catalog. And so it's not only, of course, this catalog that makes it work, but also the networks that we build with the different institutions and the contacts that we have also enable, of course, and provide expertise to look for existing components and to create a more value based on this ID. And at the moment we have 104 components available in the catalog. And so reuse, what I can tell you with the several years of experience that we have nowadays, of course, a catalog of reusable components is not enough. It's not with that you can go all the way to realize your project. Of course, what we try to do also is to integrate it in the project lifecycle. So the earlier you are by detecting these components, the more possibilities that you still have to adapt and to go into discussion with the teams that provide the reusable components, of course. Once you are in the development phase, often you are too late to still see some opportunities. At Smals, we try to measure also the benefits, use the networks, and build some government around it. And so the vision that we put then forward is that every stakeholder should be able to find the reusable elements in the catalog. We try to integrate it in the project lifecycle. The network aspect is important. For example, the IT directors that see each other on a monthly basis, but also the CEOs of the public institutions see it as a strategic important element. And by doing that, we try to create a real culture of software reuse and try to adopt it and have an evolution towards reusable products. So our final goal would be when we can offer them as a product, a new project initiative, we can go much faster and are much more flexible to realize these projects. We have different collaboration models, but that's maybe a bit less important here. And so if you see this picture, we could imagine, for example, what a generic public service looks like. So each institution, if we take a bit of a distance, we see that they somehow do the same things. So they want to receive or capture some information to be able to provide the services from the public or enterprises. They have some data flows, they have treatments, it can be automatic treatments or case management treatments. They receive payments or they have to pay. benefits to the public. They communicate, they have supporting services, archiving services, and so on. And so when you take the different institutions that I showed on the other slide, somehow all of the institutions are doing the same. And that means that in an ideal situation, of course it's not so easy in practice, when we have generic components that support this, we can go much faster and offer much more quality in our different projects. And for example, we used in contact tracing, of course, during the COVID period, we had to be very fast in providing new digital services. And when we had a need of a passenger location form, we had to treat it or communicate or make use of contact data to have these challenges realized. We saw that we could take advantage of several components that were already present in the Rios catalogue at that time. But I will show some more examples a bit further. I already mentioned also the API, and so we have an initiative that we call the API economy. And what is it all about? When we look at the Rios catalog, so I told that we have 104 components now present in that catalog. More than 90% of these components are API, and I think it's logical, of course, because APIs are really a good means, and also the granularity of the APIs are a good fit to provide added value for the different actors, and of course to exchange functionality or information between IT systems. And it makes it possible. Also, I told about the different ways that the users want to communicate with the government, the different media. And so, regardless the media, or even regardless the technology in the backend, legacy systems or new systems, new backend systems, with tools like API gateways that provide mediation, monitoring, security, traffic management, and so on. The tools are there to go a step further with APIs at the moment. And that is what we are trying to do. And so we say in the API economy, the government is not an island, and we are looking at participation with other actors or stakeholders in the bigger ecosystem. And so it can be done with APIs, of course, when you see that APIs deliver already an existing value or valuable service. When we make them available with APIs, it can be used by developers to build on and to create new innovative apps and services for the public. And so, of course, the government institutions only can use also the knowledge, the expertise of other parties to have differentiated services and better user experience, of course. So it's not the institutions alone, but it's again with our public private partners that we try to achieve this. So I've told about the GCloud infrastructure, the Rios, the API economy. Then recently we had enterprise architecture, and with enterprise architecture we try to have a link also with strategy of the government. So it's a more holistic approach where we start from a common business vision, and there are many strategy exercises, for example, also in the social security area. They are looking forward at what will bring governments or in social security for the next 10 years. What should be the focus on customer centricity, on automation, real-time experience, for example. So it's the CEOs that create this vision. And then we try to translate it into an architecture point of view. And these are covering the different layers. So business layer, application layer, and infrastructure layer. And we also try to put forward some architecture principles. And so, for example, the only one data collection is one of them. So a citizen shouldn't provide on and on the same data to the government. It should be reused. That's one of the principles. Customer centricity, digital inclusion. So when we go 100% digital, it's important that everybody can follow this. So how can we help people that are not able to use these digital services? How can we create representatives that come in place at that time, and other kind of principles that we want to put forward. And so what is the strategy on enterprise architecture level? When we want to have a coherent and an efficient whole, so a better experience by the public on government, we say that when we have a unity of vision within the public institutions and also with the private sectors, and that vision and reuse can take part, be a part of that vision, then we will be able to provide better services. Applications should last for years, but should also be able to be quickly adapted to new needs. So that's a flexibility aspect. When we make right architecture choices and we share common services, then we think with these building blocks we can create this adaptability. When we want, of course, to be less vulnerable, that's an important topic. And so by reusing and putting forward some common building blocks, we can guarantee also a better quality. And finally, of course, the policymakers, so the governments, the cabinets, it's good to involve from the beginning also IT in making these strategic decisions. So software reuse can be a strategic asset or matter, not only for IT, but also for the policymakers involved. And so at enterprise architecture, I've told in the beginning that we have a big ecosystem, and we can see different domains, social security, healthcare, or other areas that Smals are active in. They all provide services, so business services for employment, pension, holidays, healthcare, medical costs. So social security is of course is famous in Belgium, and it provides good services nowadays. For doing that, there are processes that support, of course, these services, and we try that's the idea here, to provide as much as possible generic and reusable building blocks to be able to support these processes or to support these services. And you can see that in the enterprise ID, we cover the business application and infrastructure layers, but also we see this ecosystem as broad as possible. So we don't stop at one institution. No, we look the whole domain of social security, or even broader. There are many things that are as generic that they can be used at each possible government level or domain. And thus, by adding then these architectural principles that I mentioned, then we get a holistic view on our enterprise architecture. And when we have big strategic programs, we also try to model this enterprise architecture, like we try to model generic business capabilities, building block, and the link between them, and that's where the enterprise architects at Smals come in place. And so all of these initiatives, the GCloud, the reuse, API economy, enterprise architecture, what are the benefits of that? What we are trying to do is, when we have that mindset and this collaboration and all of these assets, we should be able to develop faster, to be more flexible, what's necessary to be able to cope with all these changes that I mentioned in the beginning, also to be cheaper and to have a higher maturity of all the components that we offer. So when we build one time a good component that could be a bit more expensive, but that is reused and is in a good governance model to all of the public institutions, it's much better than when we have the components 5 or 10 times developed, and it's much more difficult to have the services behind provided in a mature way. So that's the benefits that we see, and so we can indeed improve the quality and the life of the citizens by offering these excellent digital services. So that's a bit the story behind the Rios that I wanted to tell. Now, we have many examples. I will show some recent examples that we have realized the past years. I've talked about ecosystems. You have the eHealth ecosystem, for example, where citizens give their consent to share data within this ecosystem. And so nowadays more than 90%, and it's with the contact with doctors, have given that consent. And the effect is that there are 20 billion digital transactions a year that provide services for the citizens. For example, electronic prescriptions or views on the medicine machines that you should take. And all actors like doctors, pharmacists, hospitals, or also public institutions take part in this ecosystem and together provide better services. And what are we doing with the assets or the reusable components? We offer eHealth. The eHealth platform offers basic services that are exposed by APIs, like, for example, timestamping or end-to-end encryption, anonymization services, eHealth boxes and electronic mailboxes. And these are put forward to external parties that can use them. We have cookbooks and we have standards that can be followed and can build on these services to create new services and create value for the citizens. And that is a whole concept that with all these exchanges and these services that creates a big value and that provides the support that the customer, that the public needs nowadays. Some other examples. I have some examples from the COVID period, and that hopefully we won't see again at the same scale. But for example, the National Security Social Security Office, the RSZ. In Flemish, they had to give support, for example, for employers that wanted a delay in their social security contribution. So they had, of course, problems to continue with their activities, and so their contributions could be delayed for a while. And that were decisions that the government made and that should be implemented very fast. And then when we see the components that we have in place, for example, intelligent forms interfaces that were be able to have on a secure way electronic forms with all forms of controls, also with integrations with already existing authentic sources, or we had web services that offered some kind of data in an authentic source that could be used to integrate in the project, and also the workflow management, the case management behind for the different employees of the national security office. All these things were composed together, and within 1 week we had a new application that was able to be used for more than 100,000 employers that were supported in a way and which made it possible to cover the period, the COVID period, and help them to continue their business afterwards. Also in the COVID vaccination, often it's a combination of functionality but also authentic sources. So we have, for example, the source at Vaccination, the National Register, or other databases together with different actors or communication platforms, when we put them together, it's possible to create new APIs on that combine these things and provide, for example, a vaccination code database that is then used in the vaccination processes, for example. So only once principle, I mentioned it already, so we have many authentic sources on addresses, on employers, on declarations, and that's a way to integrate these things in public services and not have to duplicate the information on and on again. Maybe another example, we've talked also about technologies or media from a customer perspective. So, of course, when an inspector is on the field and has to has some inspections at different enterprises that maybe have some fraud activities. We created a mobile app that is called My Digital Inspection Assessment, and it provided a means to an inspector to see real-time information and combine different authentic sources to support him on his inspection field. And it was a means also to identify rapidly a person and to share also information between inspectors that were on site at that time. And so how did we do it? We integrated in this mobile app 11 existing APIs. And then we had also more time to do some real business analysis work or design, front-end design work instead of having to develop all of the back-end functionality. And the result was, of course, that we had a faster and more reliable inspections, less burden also for the employers, because the inspections before took a lot of time and now they go very quickly. And with the information that is gathered, then this information is put again available with an API to the back office systems where the back office management can take place at some later time. Finally, we have other components like the eBox. The Gov app is a quite new component, and it's sort of replacement for instant messaging. So it's possibility to avoid SMS traffic that is quite expensive for government. So you have to pay the providers for each SMS that they send. With the Gov app, we have a means to have a free of use. So that's also something that you can download as an app. And also on the European level, there's a digital wallet coming that we will also see in the government as a strategic asset. And finally, some results. So I've told that we integrated software reuse in the project lifecycle. And when we look at all of these projects, and there are more than 50 projects that are taken into account each year, we see that nowadays we have even 66% of all the functionality that is delivered by software reuse. That's all functionality that we don't write from scratch, but that is provided by the software reuse catalogue. We sometimes create new reusable components, but the custom development has been limited to 28% nowadays, and so we can do cost saving at an important amount yearly. Last year it was 32 million that was avoided, so it's tax money that can be saved. And so, as early as possible, we try to integrate software reuse. And that's for example the process based on Prince2 that we use within Smals. And also the initiative has been acknowledged by the European Commission in 2019 for the eHealth platform that I showed in one of the slides. And so it was seen as an initiative with the biggest impact of citizens and businesses in Europe at that time. And software reuse was put forward as the enabler also to reach this result. And maybe a few more thoughts about what's next when we see in a European context. So I told many actors in this big ecosystem. We have many new initiatives in Europe, like the Interoperable Europe Act, Open Data Directive, EU Data Health Space, and so on. So these also are initiatives that enhance or stimulate software reuse at some level by offering data sets, but also by offering components or enhancing interoperability between institutions or different countries within Europe. So these things we are following, and there are also some components that are put forward. So the ADAS regulation, for example, that makes it possible for foreign or European citizen or so enterprise to log on the Belgian digital systems, for example. There are initiatives for the eHealth insurance card. The digital wallet is coming. So these are different things that we are following very closely, and maybe trying to also participate or be present at the initiatives on a European level that can be important, but because sometimes we are also able to offer the experience and the components that we have made in Belgium on a broader level in that way. And so, what's in it for you? I don't know what made you see this presentation. I hope you got some inspiration from it. But maybe you will be active also at the government level at some time. So it can be as a freelancer, part of a private company, or maybe you're interested in what Smals does, and so. That's the mindset that we have created nowadays in Smals, and we would try to have a participation also towards different suppliers. So when you are working in the government, it's important to know this strategy. That's also one of the reasons that I wanted to give this presentation. So you could align it. So I say you can consult or use a catalog to see how you can participate. It's a way for different private companies also to speed up when they participate in an eGov project. It's important. So the delays or the time constraints are very strict nowadays. So we have to deliver fast, and reuse can be important. And of course, you can make use of the different best practices that we've shown, or also show your own practices that you see on the fields. And we see when private companies adopt also this mindset, they can also, of course, gain some exposure by it. And so we want to invite each and everyone to help us build these generic components, offer them to the Rios community. At the end, it delivers, and we are convinced about that, it delivers a bigger value to citizens, enterprises, and finally, of course, better digital services at the public for the public in Belgium. And so you are free to join the initiative. You can consult. I've shown the different URLs. You can consult the Rios catalogue. We have, for example, an event in a few weeks about best address, open data on addresses or geolocalization. That will be a webinar that is also shared by means of our newsletter, for which you can subscribe. And so the catalog is free for use, but all the examples that I showed and other success stories or best practices can be found in the Rios catalog. So I see that my time is almost done. Can only say thanks a lot for being present. You have my coordinates there, some links also to social media about the Rios initiative, and of course I'm open for some questions. If you have them, feel free to ask them now or contact me after the session as you wish. Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
Is the owner of the component is shared? For example, let's say as a public service, I want to use workflow management program that someone else developed. Do I just get the code base and deploy it myself, or is the team who developed the product still in charge and just make whether the product evolves to fit my needs?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have different type of collaboration and possibilities. So when most of them, for example, when they are offered as a GCloud Services, they have a service owner and a service provider, and service owner is a public institution, and most of the times there are centralized services and they can be called up from APIs, for example. But we have also other type of components that are libraries, and some of the libraries are open and free for use, and can be downloaded and be integrated, for example, in your projects also. So we have different kinds of collaboration possibilities. So it depends. Yeah. Okay, you're welcome. That is it depends on the ecosystem, but I know, for example, in the eHealth sector, they have possibilities indeed to have some integration testing and some test data, for example, but it's not for every API that we offer that we have already a common strategy. But for example, in the ecosystem where there are already many external parties developing and using it to create their own value, that is indeed put in place. So we have all the documentation and the possibilities to also to use each of the accepting environments to be sure that in production we don't have problems afterwards, of course. Yeah. Okay. Feel free to contact me afterwards. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I see the time is up, so thanks a lot. See you next time.